Welcome back to another video, guys. As you guys can tell, we are still covering the Scream franchise. We've arrived at the third installment, which came out in the year 2000. I forget the date right now, but it was considered to be the last one. Most people thought it was going to be the last one. Of course, there was no social media like there is today for people to sit there and break down the movies and have a bunch of YouTube channels like this one and podcasts like this one and stuff like that. I for the longest time thought it was going to be the last movie in the franchise, and it took 11 years for us to get the fourth installment. So we're gonna try it. At least I know I'm gonna try like retroactively act with my thoughts and stuff based off of under the guise that it was the last movie in a trilogy, because they even talk about that in world. But anyway, we'll get to that. Do you have anything you want to say before we start?
No.
All right, cool. So the last episode was kind of long. It was like an hour and a half. We're going to try to talk a little, not quicker, but quickly about, the different things about the movie as opposed to giving a backstory. You guys can watch the movie. Obviously, this is just our opinion on us judging the movie. So we're going to try and keep the video definitely under an hour and a half. So here we go. Basically, the movie, again, keeps with the consistency of starting immediately. We get this cold opens, what I've been taking to calling it, very familiar. The movie just kind of starts out of nowhere, only this time it's not a random character who's just getting killed to start things off. The character who gets killed in the very beginning is Cotton Weary, played by Liv Shriver. He's been in the franchise since the very beginning. The first movie he was only seen in, I don't know if we've talked about this already, but he's only seen in like a TV news clipping or something like that, getting taken to or from jail. And then in the second one, he's obviously in the movie, going after Sydney as far as like trying to get an interview, trying to get his 10 minutes of fame. Well, he's achieved that. He now has a successful TV show, kind of like a Ricky Lake thing, I think. It's called 100% Cotton. And he's gotten what he wanted. So the movie starts with him going home from like a taping of it or something, being a complete douche nozzle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, they kind of honestly detach us from him a little bit before they kill him off, which I kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely is kind of seen as like a womanizer kind. I have him written down as like this really douchey dude. He has a girlfriend because she calls him or he calls her, I can't remember, on his car phone, because we had car phones. That's how you knew. That's the flex of the 2000s, if you had a phone in your car. And then of course he gets a phone call on his cell phone, and I can't remember if it was his girlfriend or not, but he gets a phone call. It wasn't, right?
No.
Yeah, but he does get an interrupting phone call, and it's his it's supposed to be like a random person talking about.
She like makes the wrong number. She calls the wrong number, and of course.
Yeah, he turns around and he's like, "Oh, so you're a 100% Cotton fan, big fan, this and that." And he's like, and the person says yes, and he tends to kind of turn on that whole like I'm single thing, because the person questions like, "Oh, do you have a girlfriend?" He's like,
because she's like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, like his voice is so sexy and stuff like that." And he's like, "Oh yeah, you think so?" And he's just feeding into this woman on the phone when he obviously has a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So
he's like, "What makes you think I have a girlfriend?" kind of crap. And then he turns on, he's like, "Because I'm looking at her right now." It's great because Ghostface is awesome. Come on.
I like that. That shows us, at least, I don't know if we were supposed to catch on pretty early on with this specific thing or not, but I caught on as soon as the voice changed. I was like, okay, so whoever is Ghostface now has stepped up like the voice changing game, and he obviously can pretty much imitate anybody he wants to now. So I caught on to that pretty quickly. I don't know if we were supposed to. I don't know if everyone else did, but that's what I got immediately from that.
That's a good point, because I actually have that written down later in the notes, like in the timeline. If you guys are new to the channel, we have this like criteria that we follow. We break down the intro, the first appearance of the killer, the first kill, dopest kill, that kind of thing. And we have it. I have it structured a little differently as far as like when I talk about that detail about the voice changing thing, because that is the first time we hear that, and I think it's meant to throw us off. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm almost positive that it's meant to throw off the initial like not knowing, like you hear about Cotton calling, and ends up going to the house, and his girlfriend or whatever is like, hey, is it you? And it's Ghostface, and it sounds just like Liv Schreiber. Obviously they used him to do it, but in the world it's supposed to be Ghostface with his little voice changer thing, and he ends up like getting really cynical with it, because she's like, oh my God, I told you I don't like these Ghostface games. And he's like, I'm sorry, babe, just like, it's the game. And she's like, what game? And he's like, I want to rip your insides out. And then he goes back, and she's terrorized again. And they do a good job of showing her face go from that, oh God, it's not that big a deal, to holy crap, what the hell? And he starts trying to stab through the door and stuff. But yeah, it's another cold opening, but it's a little more fast paced as opposed to the setup and all that. The setup is a little bit more sick as far as like, mentally twisted goes, but he kind of goes 0 to 60. He kills both of them inside like maybe 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something that I noted too, was that, I mean, the first two definitely started out, obviously the intro before the title card, they, people were killed. That's like, so far I've seen like, that's kind of their thing that they like to do so far, is and it's been two, I've noticed. It's always been two people in each one before the title card that gets killed. But yeah, I definitely noticed that.
Yeah, you're kind of expecting it. You're definitely kind of expecting that. So yeah.
It was like a lot more quicker pace than the first two. Like, cause like I said, they were. Yeah, it was just they especially because in this one, like, we already knew who the character was, and they killed him off like as soon as the movie started, pretty much.
It was kind of like, I remember as a kid, I was expecting it to be like a dream sequence. Like maybe he was going to wake up from a nightmare and be like, holy crap. Cause he was never really afraid of Ghostface. They never really showed Cotton's character as being afraid that, Ghostface had him on the list or something like that. So it kind of seemed, and plus he was like, big strapping guy. Like most of these guys, with the exception of Derek, put up a fight with Ghostface, and Ghostface was a smaller person, so I was kind of hoping it or expecting it to be a dream or some sort of like nightmare or something like that, which would have been fitting for Wes Craven, obviously. But yeah, so that basically starts off with Cotton getting murdered, him and his girlfriend. And, he's like, it was a simple question, Cotton. All I wanted to know was, or a simple game. I just wanted to know where Sydney was, and you lose. And he just kills him. And the movie starts off immediately, like we're used to by now. So that pretty much covers the intro before the title card, which is our first criteria. Moving right into the first appearance of the killer, not counting that, as those of you know, we have it written that way, but it's basically towards Sydney. And in this movie, boy, is it different, because he takes his time.
Yeah, it takes a little longer in this movie. I think it's like the middle of the movie almost when he finally makes an appearance to her. And it's honestly at such a genius time too, where she's like at, the set that replicates her old house pretty much perfectly. It's like right on accurate. And, so she's already sitting there, she visits the garage that Tatum got killed at, and then goes upstairs, sits on the bed, starts reminiscing about Billy before she knew that he was one of the killers. And so she's got all these feelings going on. She's mourning her mom at the same time. And then she starts hearing weird noises in the house and stuff. So she's thinking something might be in the house. And of course she starts to back up towards the window, and he comes through and grabs her, and that's the first time that she sees him. And it's just so genius. And yeah, it's
weird because that, like we were saying, as I was hearing you talk about that, I was like, wait, something doesn't make sense, because that's not the first time you see Sydney. That's the first time, as we said, that the killer, Ghostface, and Sydney meet up. The first time you see her, you find out she's like a recluse, living in like the hills in this really nice like summer home.
Yeah, we see her right after the title card shows,
like we normally do.
Yeah.
And she has like a golden retriever. I laugh because I know there probably are some golden retriever dogs that are trained to be really good guard dogs, but golden retrievers are not known for that.
No, they're the sweetest like breed of dog ever. Yeah. They're usually like service dogs.
And you see he's like, the golden retrievers, and you see the big beware of dog sign. And I know that's it's not supposed to be funny, but it makes me kind of chuckle a little bit. But yeah, so she's like living in this place, has like ADT or whatever, As soon as you see her opening her gate to come back from her dog walk, she closes it, does the little combination, which serves no fucking purpose at all because the gate's like 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Granted, I think there was it was like electrified, but who cares? Anyway, she goes into the house, closes her door, does the whole number thing, and then you see that how she's able to fund this, elaborate $7,000 or $500,000 house operation is by working as a crisis counselor at home for women's crisis. And she logs in, reports herself as Laura. She's not considering herself, herself anymore for safety reasons, trying to hide from Ghostface, which is weird because the second movie, as far as how it translates, it's like he's dead, or the idea of Ghostface, unless some sicko wants to be a copycat killer, is pretty much a done deal.
Yeah, well, I think that's what's in her mind. This could happen again.
Right.
It happened again. It happened twice. So of course it could be a copycat killer. So I think that's what's in her mind. She's just taking every single possible precaution that she possibly could, which, I mean, I guess you can't really blame her for that. But yeah.
It's interesting, definitely, because these movies are about what they do to you psychologically, as opposed to, just somebody being afraid of a kill. Like, we'll get into the Michael movies, obviously, and the Jason movies, but like, you're afraid of him, or Michael or Jason or whatever monster it is. In this movie, you're like afraid of what's happening, because this person is not only systematically killing your close loved ones and friends and family, but they're also, as far as Sydney goes, getting into your head, and she has to fight, this temptation of whatever it may be, whether it's, to run or to stay or to fight. And you actually see her grow up. And of course it helps that it was, like I said, 11 years later, but she's definitely trying to move on with her life and her family. You hear her dad talk about later on that, she's like, I can't even talk. It's like she doesn't exist. Her name is Laura. Nobody knows her real name, and nobody sees her. She's living like almost like COVID, like by herself, working from home.
And her dad does not like that, and he makes that pretty clear. And I like when she says, well, a killer can't kill who they can't find or who doesn't exist, or whatever. And it just shows like she's just completely, backed away from society altogether.
Yeah, we just wanted to add that for those of you who for some reason haven't seen the movie and choose to hear our take on it before you watch it, which thank you. But just to clarify, you see the first interaction of Ghostface and Sydney way after you see, like you said, like over half, at least definitely after the first act, for sure.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because it makes it to where it's not the same old crap. Where in the third installment, things are going to get different. And that's what this movie is. They switch everything around because you really have no idea who it is. But we'll get to that. That brings us to the first kill, which I think is probably the funniest. I think if we ever decide to add a category to this criteria, the funniest kills probably be on there. And for me, it's not funny because it's comedic. Like, it's not objective humor. It's kind of subjective. I'm not a big Jenny McCarthy fan. I just think that, she was just known for her, I don't know if it was straight up adult magazines or adult movies, but she definitely was in the adult entertainment industry. And then she kind of did her acting thing. And I just never took her very seriously. I just thought I just never was able to separate her, the fact that she did the adult entertainment and then she was in this movie. I don't think she was supposed to be taken seriously. I'm not trying to say that, but just remembering how it was, because a lot of this stuff is, I've seen these movies many, many times, and Lex hasn't seen them. So she's the one that's freshly judging them. I'm kind of retroactively doing it, and trying to step myself away from, as much as I can, the nostalgia and like all that governs my opinions, because I'm a big fan of these movies regardless of whether they suck or not. I grew up with them. I'm a huge slasher guy. So, but Jenny McCarthy, I thought that was weird. As a kid, I had no idea who she was. And then after I got older, I was like, wait a minute, Jenny McCarthy was in Scream 3. This is hilarious. Of course, she plays a character named Sarah, which really doesn't matter, because she literally dies 5 minutes after she's shown on screen. Super cliche with her, bimbo attitude, like, she's not even trying to make a point about objectifying women. She's almost like on the fence, like,
yeah,
oh, my life is so hard. Everyone likes me because I'm hot, which, newsflash, I don't think she's very hot. But anyway, and it's not just because my girlfriend's in the shot, but yeah, it was very weird because she gets a call from the director of the movie, and he's like going over her lines, and we're like, okay, what does this have to do with the movie at all? and then he switches to Ghostface, and we're like, okay. And that kind of confirms what you said earlier, that he's stepped up his tech game. He's got some sort of voice changing device that can mimic people's voices to where, at least over the phone, it's uncanny. And I remember being confused because I was like, well, how, first of all, how are they doing this? Second of all, like, how is it, like, what is it going to do? Like, what are they trying? Because this isn't Sydney. Why is he going through all these, extremities to kill these lower level characters if it doesn't matter? Because he's trying to get to Sydney. This whole thing's about Sydney. And of course, you find out at the end, but
yeah, because Roman is actually the one who called her, right?
Yeah.
So right then it makes us kind of believe that it's not him because the voice turns to Ghostface. And I thought that was really interesting, and it kind of throws you off a little bit, because something I did start thinking about after we watched the movie a couple times was that, like, if you really think about it, you have to watch a movie like at least 2 times to really think about this, but they had to, which I think they actually mentioned this though in the movie. They mentioned that it has to be someone who's on the set. I remember Dewey said that. Dewey said that it had to be someone on the set because he had access to everything, and obviously, like, now that I'm thinking about it, he had access to the set of Sydney's old house and everything, and when we first see Ghostface, or at least when Sydney first sees him. And so it makes me think, like, well, it makes sense now that you've watched it a couple times, but definitely that first initial, when he calls her, that first kill, besides the ones before the title card and everything, it throws you off. You don't know who it is at all, because it makes you think that it's not Roman, which of course we know it ends up being Roman. But
and now, like, obviously thinking about it, taking a step back and thinking about it, it's a lot easier for him to talk as himself, Roman. Yeah. And newsflash, he's the killer. But yeah, he's talking about, or spoiler alert, I should say, but he's talking as himself. So it's like, as soon as he switches to the Ghostface thing, putting yourself in in those shoes, you're not like going back and forth. You're basically just yourself, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm also this guy, like a Superman Clark Kent kind of situation.
Yeah, I remember, like, the way I felt when I was watching the movie, and the cops, Kincaid and whoever the other guy was,
the guy that looks like Dollar General Ray Romano for me. Yeah.
They come up to him and they're like, well, they said that you called Sarah. And of course, as the audience, we're thinking, well, it can't be him because the voice changed and it was not him. And I thought that was really interesting, after watching it all the way through and then watching it again. I was like, damn, they really had us believing that it wasn't him. Like, yeah.
Well, he did a good job. Like, we'll talk about it a little bit later on. He did a good job about hiding, like, within the characters, but also towards us, because we're watching the movie and we're the constant. We're the ones that are eyes on everyone. When the scenes change, obviously the viewers are the ones that are following everyone. We're the ones who kind of know, don't go in there for a reason because we know what's in the room, or that kind of thing. And they did a really good job from that element. I think that part was really well done. The fact that they duped us pretty good. If you watch, anybody listening, if you guys have seen the movie, had no prior knowledge of it, and can think back further than me, and can see if you knew it was him, let us know in the comments. I'm dying to know someone's take and why. Like, let us know why. What gave away that it was Roman from the very beginning? Because I pride myself in being able to catch that kind of stuff, and I never saw it coming.
No, neither did I.
Yeah, it was really, and I know you're really good at that too. So
yeah, especially with horror movies, I go into it like, all right, who's the killer?
Well, you're
when it's one of these, but yeah. So I'm like immediately critiquing it, like as soon as I start watching it, and I'm trying to figure it out. And so far, I haven't been able to. With all 3 of the movies, I mean, the first one I was definitely skeptical of Stu and Billy, mostly Stu, just because he was so crazy and weird. But I was still like, I don't know. I've never been like 100% like, okay, I've made a decision. I like that about these movies.
You're really well off too, because you're equipped with that in the future, as in, like, you didn't see these when they came out, when there was no whatever stigma there might be of like being cliche and being like, oh well. Obviously, if you watch, I don't know, I'm thinking like of a modern day horror movie, like The Purge or something like that. I don't know. Might be a bad example, but for the sake of the argument, like a newer movie, you refer to movies like Scream, like, Halloween, like those movies to go, well, what's the cliche from back in the day when these movies were first, incepted or whatever. But yeah, so I definitely like that. Even you, like someone who hasn't seen these movies, who is well aware of the cliche element, it didn't hit you, and it makes the movies more rewatchable, which is a big part of why these movies are so timeless, literally.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that it was interesting, the first kill, because it was just funny, but it was also more funny than interesting because of how she died. Like the last look on her face, she's like, she has really bad makeup, and like she gets stabbed, and like literally the very next scene is her draped over the door. She gets like stabbed through this like office door that has a really, really big window, and he, like, the momentum of stabbing her through the window breaks it, hangs her body over it, and like she has already dried blood on her face, so it looks like she had been hanging there for like an hour.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny how she kept grabbing the prop knives and shit too, like.
And they look like dildos in her hands.
Yeah, like she's in the movie. She's on the set. She knows that they're props. They're not gonna do anything. I don't know why she picked them up. I don't know if she thought it was gonna scare him or something, but I just thought that was really funny for some reason.
I just want to put this out there: a random titty grab. I mean, come on. I almost called her Sarah. That's her name in the movie.
And I mean, my boyfriend just died. Why am I showering?
Why don't we just read the scene?
Like, anyway, moving on from that. I thought, if you think, I'm sorry if that was your favorite character for some reason, but like that shit was hilarious to me. Going right into the first kill, we have the dopest kill. For me, this time, I know you said, I asked you off camera if you had a definitive answer, because I wanted to see if like ours were different, just for kind of your purposes, the viewers out there. For me this time, I couldn't really pick at first, I couldn't really pick a choice between the two I have as a tie, but then afterward, there clearly is one that I like over the other, but I'll go ahead and read the notes as written. It was a tie based off of Jennifer and Tom. They were the characters that played Dewey and Gale in the recreation of the movie. Because we'll talk about the plot in a second, but the plot of the movie is recreating, just like in Stab 1, this is Stab 3, and they're talking about the events that happened to the characters after the first one or the second one, but they don't really cover Stab 2, which is something very interesting that I don't know if you thought about. They never really cover Stab 2.
Yeah.
Because in the second movie, Stab 1 came out. So there's been several years, and apparently Gale is supposed to die in the script.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because obviously we know, those of you that, I mean, you saw the trailers, you know that Courtney Cox is in the fourth one. Mm-hmm. She didn't die. So it's very interesting. I just wanted to add that little bit there. But basically that's the premise of this movie. They're filming the making of Stab 3, and the actors who they picked to play Gale and Dewey are named Jennifer and Tom, like their IRL in-world actor names.
Yeah.
And for me, their kills were really, really cool. I know you really enjoyed Tom's kill.
I did, yes.
So I guess we'll talk about that first, the similarities and what we liked in that. I think most of us, or both of us, are going to say mostly the same stuff as far as like why it was cool. But for me, I just have my biggest point on it is that it was kind of like the Saw movies before Saw. You kind of got a taste of of how the killer can orchestrate and put a sequence of events that it's kind of like a mousetrap. If it doesn't work perfectly, it'll just unravel. And he had so many opportunities because so many people were involved, so to speak. You had all the survivors in the room at the time. Dewey was there, who was a seasoned survivor. Courtney was there, and they were all there, and they were all reading off the fax machine. And the fax machine was like, the next scene of the movie is this, and the killer was making that stuff happen as they were reading it. And finally, he says something about the gas, right? The smelling of the gas.
Yeah, so he says, it's like something like the one who gets killed or something along the lines of that is whoever smells the gas. That's actually what I named this specific kill, so I could remember. But yeah, it says in the thing, like, and as Tom is reading it, he's like, whoever smells the gas. And I think he already had the lighter lit, which is something that I thought was cool. Is like Ghostface, he had to plan that out to where, like, he knew that somebody would go back in the house and there would be no lights and someone would need to use the fire to see in the house. And of course, Tom is the one that does that. And obviously, he had set it up to where the house was going to blow the fuck up. Yeah. He
basically had them go in and out. So whether they wanted to or not. And that's the whole point of the scene. It's like the characters could have done what they wanted. They could have totally not followed directions. And at one point they have an argument where they're like, no, don't you think that's what the killer would want us to do? And Dewey's like, everybody outside. And they're like, no, because X, Y, Z. I don't want to misquote the scene, but it's perfectly done.
Yeah, the one girl, she's like, no, I have to know what happens next. Or maybe that was Tom that said that, but I know at least somebody,
One of them, yeah.
somebody was like, no, I have to know what happens next, because the fax was still printing stuff out. And then, you know, obviously Tom ends up going in there.
It was really well done because everything is done in the same location. Yes, there are cuts. They maybe took 10 years to make the scene. I'm not saying that, but they were done, like, it was done really flawlessly. Like, I don't remember any continuity errors. I don't remember any kind of problems with how the scene flowed. The one lady who plays Jennifer, she's like, I always comment this when her and I are watching it. The way she reads the last note before the one Tom gets, you know, it's so, she reads it so like eloquently. It sounds like an actor reciting lines.
But
like,
frantically at the same time. Yeah.
And it was really cool because I rewatched, or I saw a clip of that because I looked up all the deaths to make sure I didn't leave anyone out when I was making my notes. And they actually showed a clip of Tom blowing up. And it, even by today's standards, that CG looked pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it looked awesome.
Yeah, because it almost, I mean, apart from the fact that it looked like the explosion was within him. Yeah, but it still looked realistic as hell. Like, I loved it. That scene was by far the coolest scene in death in the movie. But the only reason why I put Jennifer up there was purely me and nostalgia. I'm a big nostalgia guy. Those of you that know me, that's a big driving force of me and entertainment, is what brings the most nostalgia. And I remember watching that scene when she dies. Dewey and Gail are seeing these series of mirrors that are moving, and Dewey immediately is like, well, I'm going to shoot him. Why? I don't remember. But he starts shooting these mirrors, and he goes one by one, starting from the one all the way to the left. And then when he gets to the one to the right, which is where she is, her body just like falls out of the mirror, almost like a magic trick reveal. And Ghostface is nowhere to be found. So like breaking that scene down, I remember him shooting all the glasses that led up to the last one, which means his point of exit is this way, where all the glass is gone, and you don't see him run away or anything like that. You just see her body the glass explodes from the gunshot, and her body just appears dead already. So he had to have propped her dead body perfectly so that when the shot blew out the mirror, it fell forward. And right before he shoots her, she's like, I'm the killer in Stab 3. You can't kill me. And it's just so, like, these details that never actually came to fruition, obviously, because the movie was never completed. It just added to that real world, in-world, you know, traumatic, you know, experience that these guys must have been going through. But I just had to put that as like an honorable mention. Between Tom and Jennifer, those were the dopest kills for me. I think you agree with Tom, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought so, because we talked about it a lot. So that brings us into the lamest kill, or lame-ass kill, as I have it written. I'm actually curious to hear what your thoughts are first, because mine is pretty freaking, like, I'm passionate about it. Go for it.
Okay, so I actually don't remember her name in the movie. I just kind of know her as the girl that was going to play Sydney in Stab 3.
Angelina.
Yeah. I think hers is probably like the lamest one, because it kind of just seems like they you know, they just kind of needed to kill her off. They just needed to find some reason. Of course, she's the idiot that's like, no, fuck you guys. I'm leaving. Like, I'm getting out of here. And then she runs and then gets killed like immediately. And it just kind of seemed like just like another body basically that they had to throw in there basically. And they just kind of, you know, they had to find a way to kill her off. And that's just how that seemed to me. It was very quick. It was very like, we could have gone without that. It was kind of funny a little bit, honestly, just because, you know, because especially like right before she runs off, she's like, I did not fuck that motherfucker just to die or whatever the hell. And so, yeah, I was, that's mine. Yeah.
It's funny because that's exactly what I have written. I'm going to try and read it word for word.
I actually didn't know that. We didn't talk about that one.
Yeah. That's literally did not discuss this one at all. Because mine was so clear cut. That's why I didn't even ask for your input. Like, I figured I was like, let the viewers hear us talk about it for the first time. I literally wrote, Angelina for me was the lamest kill. It was cliche and cheesy, if you ask me. This was kind of a kill style that fits a monster movie, which I really think it was. Those of you that want clarification, she basically, like you said, runs off like fuck this, I'm out, and does this stupid little flailing runaway down a hallway with a very old rug, which I don't know about you guys, but I've walked on those kind of rugs, and you will eat all the shit if you run on them. And she runs off, says she didn't screw Roman, or no, the old guy who played by Lance, I forget his last name, Erickson, something like that, the guy from Near Dark and stuff, for those of you who are big fans of him. He's a great actor, but anyway, he plays like the big overlord producer, like the Steven Spielberg type in the movie, and he's been producing all of the stab movies and all of the horror movies in that area in Hollywood or whatever. And he apparently was going around sleeping with all the talent to give them work, and that was like a little I don't want to say the plot, but it was like a subplot of the movie. We later find out that same thing happened to Sidney Prescott's mom. It's kind of, we'll get to that, but it's kind of unclear how it applied to her, but you kind of get little hints. But yeah, so she's running around, or running away, trying to get away. And the very next scene you see is we see her get grabbed by Ghostface, because she goes down this hallway and she's like, "We're going to get out of here," and does the classic turnaround thing. And there he is, grabs her, stabs her as she tries to get away, stabs her in the stomach. And that commotion draws Gail and Jennifer's character all the way up down the hallway that she just ran on or away from, and they look over the balcony, and you see like a first person view shot of them looking down, and then her stupid fucking face, dude. She's just like,
yeah,
and like she's not dead yet, and she's looking right at them with a little bit of blood coming down the side of her mouth, and then she gets drug away slowly, like if two dogs just grabbed her by the pants and just pulled her away. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weak, Ghostface is not about that. He's more of a leave the body where it lay, bloodied and disgusting, and then he just hauls ass. So I get it kind of turned into a escape the mansion kind of a deal at the end, but it just translated so cheesy, man. Like, I hated it. I thought it was a fitting way of ending a lame character, because she served no purpose except for the whole she played Sydney thing. But yeah, it just didn't translate well. I have it, and it didn't make it look, because the biggest problem I had with it was Gail and Jennifer. They had this, Jennifer was playing Gail on the big screen, so she had this like fascination with her, and people were getting killed, so she was like trying to take advantage of it in case the movie came back into production. And she wanted to take advantage and pick Gail's brain, and they kind of had this Batman and Robin thing going around where they were like following stuff. And at one point she was like, "Isn't this what the real Gail Weathers are doing?" She's like, "Listen." And she makes it clear that her journalism, is not behind her, because in the very beginning she had to literally stop herself from interviewing Dewey. But she's definitely put it behind her by this time. She's trying to catch this dude and survive. And this girl's like confused, because she's like, "What do you mean? You're Gail Weathers?" And she's like, "Yeah, but I'm Gail Weathers, the person, not the reporter." And they had this like I said, this like detective thing going, and this scene just ruined it, because they scream. Like, they literally, I get the movie's called Scream, I get it, but they see her body get drug away and don't scream until after she's out of frame. And I'm like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But yeah, so that to me was lame as shit. I'm glad that you agreed, because I think all the other kills were pretty dope. Honestly.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
So the overall plot, which we pretty much covered, I guess we just rate it at this point, is why we bring it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the first thing I noticed about this plot that was obviously different than the other ones was how the killer was like leaving photos of Sydney's mom with each body, each person that he killed.
Like a calling card, yeah.
Yeah, I think another important part of the plot was how like Sydney's trauma and mourning for everybody seems to finally be, catching up with her, because that's something I noticed in like really the second one, because the first one is when everything first happened, so trauma doesn't always like catch up with you that fast. But the second one, they don't really show her. I mean, obviously she's cautious, she's learned to be a badass basically, but in the third one they really show like how that trauma can affect you. She starts having nightmares and stuff like that, and
which were kind of hard to decipher. Like, there were times where I think at one point you asked me, you're like, "Wait, did that nightmare really happen?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah. I know the very first one was a nightmare for sure, like, because she actually sees her mom. Like, it's an actor that's playing her mother. So that one we know was a real nightmare, because she wakes up from it and there's nothing in the window. Honestly, I'm not sure. I think all the other ones after that were Ghostface.
They were.
Because, he had the thing over him and stuff like that.
I think we covered that it was a coincidence, because he would never have known that she had a dream that her mother was wearing a a bloody nightgown, or
Yeah.
the fact that she would stumble on the set and see. I mean, he knew because he was the director, but
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't know that she would have that specific image of her mother coming at her, you know. Like if he would have found out through a happenstance, if he was like a fly in the wall or whatever, if she recounted that story to like Kincaid, the detective played by Patrick Dempsey, which don't even get me started on why the hell he's in this movie, but there had to have been a reason. I just don't know what it is, because his character, we'll talk about that in a minute. I know I have words to say about him because that was dog shit. But anyway, he's like trying to figure this out, and if he would have heard that story and repeated it, and then Roman heard, then it would have made sense for him to use that coroner bloody sheet imagery to kind of get under her skin. But I think it was just a coincidence. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
Whether it was intended or not, I have no idea. But
yeah, I thought another thing, like Dewey kind of sets up the plot for us when him and Gail are talking at that restaurant and everything after they see each other for the first time in like forever, since he got healed and everything. And, you know, he tells us, you know, that's when he's saying, like, he suspects pretty early on that someone on the set wants to kill Sydney, and that they're killing people in the order of the people who get killed in Stab 3. And also, the video that Randy had made before he died,
oh yeah,
that sets up a lot of the plot, too, because he mentions stuff about, you know, he mentions a trilogy, which, like you said, makes us think that this is going to be the end. It's a three-part movie series. And so he was saying, like, you're not going to be able to stab or shoot the killer because they're going to be superhuman, which obviously we know he's not superhuman. He ends up having a bulletproof vest and stuff on. But he did set that up, and he put that in everybody's heads, which obviously made Sydney wear one too.
Which helped. Oh, it helped.
But yeah, that video that Randy made really helped with the plot a lot, because it set it up. He was right about pretty much everything he said.
It gave us guidelines because I even have written here, like, the movie, one of the reasons why the overarching plot was good was because we didn't have anything to go off of. This was the first Scream where there was one killer. This guy, Roman, was doing everything himself. Of course, you find out he was the person who was responsible for Billy going off the deep end and Stu following Billy. That was, you know, obviously Stu bringing him into the fold, but Billy lost his mind because of because of Roman. And Roman was orchestrating everything, and he had no idea that Billy was gonna not only get an accomplice, but that he was gonna start making his own movie, which is basically killing people. So he even tells Sydney at one point, he's like, you know, I had no idea he was gonna make his own movie, because it was Roman's intention this whole time to kind of butter Sydney up, kill all of her friends, and then take his revenge because of a big reveal that we'll get to. But towards the end, you find out that there's only one killer, obviously, and it's Roman. And it's insane because it made it so hard to peg who the killer was, because normally you have like Mickey was acting really weird, and I'm sure I had suspicions that Mickey was involved, and because you think of, he was basically another Billy. He was he definitely was to me. And with this movie, it's like Roman, you see him drunk and he's like walking around. We joked that was the only time in the movie where everyone was safe was when Roman was on screen, and you never had that security in the previous ones because there were multiple killers. So like he takes the Jennifer's character down into the basement looking for the big producer guy whose house is this gorgeous mansion that the last act takes place in, and they go down into the basement and he's like acting drunk, and you know he's going around looking at the props and stuff, and I remember I keep watching that scene and I'm like, you know, no one's gonna die here because he's acting like he's drunk. But yeah, it was just so interesting to see that he took his time, like in the end, to reveal what his passion was, and he was a true psychopath because it really bothered him. But yeah, he took you find out at the end that he's so invested in the whole Maureen Prescott story because, here we go, that's his mom. I had no idea that he was Sydney's half brother, and it made sense. It definitely tied everything together. It was not to spoil Halloween because you've seen the first one, but it made more sense than the whole Laurie Strode being Michael Myers' sister, in my opinion. That was kind of, I agree with Carpenter, it was kind of meh. Of course, it took a long time, but we'll get to that in another episode. But yeah, I like the fact that they were related. It made the ending really impactful when she confronts him. And it tied the first, second, and the third movies together too. And it aided to us, at least me, thinking, okay, well, I guess it's done.
Yeah.
The movies are over. But the plot was really, really strong. I thought it was going to be, terrible because most trilogies end with the third part being the weakest. And this movie definitely had that taste in my mouth when I was younger. But now, not even because the franchise continued, but because I'm an adult and I'm able to analyze the movie and I can get more out of it now. And it definitely is not the one that I hide when I rewatch these movies. I still watch it.
Yeah, I see a lot of debate between whether everyone thinks that either the third or the fourth one was the most horrible ones in the whole franchise. And obviously I haven't seen 4, 5, or 6 yet. Those are next. So I'm really excited to see the fourth one, to see my opinion on that, because I loved the third one, honestly. Like, maybe even more than the second one. But I keep seeing people say that, like, the third one was horrible, and then people who don't agree with that say it's the fourth one. I never see anything about the fifth or the sixth one being bad. So a lot of people like the second one more than the third one. I don't know. I don't know why, honestly. Like,
well, I don't want to jump in order here, but I'm definitely gonna, we might as well knock it out now. Why? I mean, it's not an official category, but I rated the second one a little higher than the third one because of nostalgia purposes. I liked the soundtrack. I liked the structure of the film. It was very like I always talk about Dewey's theme, Sue Me, but that song, the utilization of that track always sets the pace. You know that when you hear the Dewey theme, it's never going to be anyone getting killed. It gives you that save point, that checkpoint, video game terms. Like, you just got your ass waxed by the last mini boss, and then you get to this scene where you save the game. And that the second movie had that. This third one was kind of like a roller coaster. You had no idea if you were going to get on it backwards at the end, if you were sitting next to the killer, or if you were sitting next to someone you can actually trust.
I guess I kind of liked that more about the third one. So I guess that really just comes down to personal opinions and stuff, because that makes a lot of sense as to why I would like the third one a little bit more than the second one, because I like that it's more like there's not like any safe points or save points or whatever. Like, you don't know what's going on, like, ever, really. And I like that. I like having that, like, suspense, that, like, I don't want to say, like, scared feeling, but just that tense feeling.
The suspense, yeah.
Yeah,
it definitely worked. Then the more I talk about it, that things like this, projects like this podcast, and like just watching it with new people and stuff like that, it kind of makes it as strong as the first two as far as rewatchability goes. But yeah, definitely is not the weakest. I mean, it might still be the weakest, like, objectively, like you were saying, but I digress on that. It brings us to the next category, which we're getting to the ones that are more opinionated now. I know the best supporting character one is one of my favorite ones to touch on, especially for this movie, because I think I have the most to say than the other two. But for me, it was Jennifer. I keep talking about Jennifer. I think her character was amazing. I don't know if it was how it was written, how it was performed, or if it was a combination of both. But
I really liked how her and Gail worked together, but they also didn't like each other at the same time, but they were able to set that aside and kind of like work together, and it provided some like comedy relief in the movie, like the way that they kind of bicker and go back and forth a little bit.
Yep.
And I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
I honestly agree with that. Her, and then also I have to just say Dewey again too. Like, they're probably the best supporting characters to me in the movie. Like, Dewey is just always just right there, dude. He's always the one that is adamant about, and he's like, I said this in the last video about Scream 2. He's not even a police officer anymore. This isn't his responsibility. This is just him being so passionate about making sure Sydney's safe, making sure everyone else in whatever town he's in is safe, because he's in a different town now. So it's like, Dewey is just an obvious one, but Jennifer is definitely the, like, underdog kind of with the whole categorizing that. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I definitely like that. Like you said, he's a cop at heart, even though he's not on the payroll, and he's not romantically involved. He's not like, not even that hopeless romantic, like, well, I'll never get, like Randy, who wanted to be with Sydney so bad, and Dewey never had that. He was always interested in Gail and Gail only, but he had that love for Sydney like a little sister, because she was Tatum's best friend.
Yeah.
And we forgot about that too.
Yeah, we did.
Because what is it? The guy that plays Joe in Family Guy's in this movie. Which
Yes.
it's just one of those things where you had no idea back then that he would become a household name because of Emperor's New Groove and Family Guy and stuff. But he's like, hey, Dewdrop. Like the whole his voice is his voice, and he pokes jabs at Dewey, like he's like, oh, I just want to make sure what ends up like your sister, and I'm like, dude, that's kind of cold. But then he gets murked, so it all works out. But yeah, the Jennifer character was amazing. She also drops hints on, like, I don't know how real it was. I don't know if Wes Craven was drawn, or maybe it was Kevin Williamson, I believe is his name, who wrote the screenplays for these movies. I think one of them, if not both, were drawn by Hollywood being a place where some people consider selling your soul. I know my stepdad was an actor, and he acted on like Law and Order, and he was in a really, really awesome movie called Sleepers, and that was like his big breakout role. Even though he did not pursue acting after that, he just didn't like the vibes, and that was just his opinion. But yeah, he often mentioned how actors would do different things and they would stretch their morality at times to kind of get ahead. And, who doesn't want to be a Brad Pitt or, a Dustin Hoffman, and some of these actors, male or female, they sell their soul to be famous. And this movie definitely has hints on, like, if you're a woman in Hollywood, you got to sleep with someone. And it sucks because it doesn't become the whole plot of the movie, even though it's a big point of why Maureen was killed or why she was mutilated, and
it's almost like a PSA kind of.
Yeah. Definitely screams PSA. And I just had to touch on that because you hear it, like Angelina says, I didn't, fuck so-and-so for that. At one point, Jennifer herself says that she slept with Roman and that, I was the best you ever had. It's always talked about, like, and then you find out Maureen was either raped or she was led to believe that she would get the role, and then she was told, hey, get naked.
Both things happened to her.
Yeah.
Like, so, yeah.
So it definitely is an undertone of these movies. Granted, Wes Craven does have that element with Freddy being a perv and everything. So who knows? But it definitely shows itself in these movies. But Jennifer, it doesn't ruin her character. Like, it doesn't make her character like this bimbo who's just a slut, Yeah. It definitely...
She has personality. Like, she has depth to her personality. Like,
yeah, and I love that. I love that about her. But yeah, other than that, I'm just going to give Randy a shout out. He was still a supporting character. You pointed on the important, things of that, especially that last scene, man, where it gives me chills every time, where he's like, he says to them, he's like, you guys need to be on your A game. Even you, Sydney, that means you can, everything, all bets are off. You can be killed. And, he's like, I wish you guys good luck. And he says, and for some of you, I'll see you soon. And it always gives me chills because he's talking from beyond the grave, And any kind of last will and testament that's video, typically in media, it's like a joke. Like, oh, and by the way, so-and-so, you're not getting the art collection. So-and-so is. And then it turns into this, but with that send-off, he's like, if you're watching this tape, I didn't make it. And it's very, very impactful for me. We talk about it a lot. But so yeah, for me, it was Jennifer. Was Jennifer you said besides Dewey, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're pretty tied for me, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. That for me too. But yeah, so worst supporting character for me, it's fucking Kincaid, dude. Played by Patrick Dempsey. Went on to star in like Grey's Anatomy. There's a big ass train just going
we live
by.
right across from the train tracks.
Yeah, so if you guys hear that in playback, apologies. But yeah, Detective Kincaid is played by Patrick Dempsey, who went on to star in Grey's Anatomy and a couple other movies, rom-coms mainly, kind of thing. Most girls and women that I've spoken to have been obsessed with him at some point or not in their life, and I just, it's whatever. But he definitely isn't a heartthrob in this movie. He's just a detective. He's awkward as fuck though. This guy is so weird.
Yeah.
And I know it's not his acting skills because, like I said, he went on to do other things. He's just so cringy, dude. Like,
yeah, him and his partner too.
Yeah.
They're both just kind of, which leads me to say, like, I agree with you on the worst supporting characters because it's, I don't know, they don't really add a lot. The only thing that Kincaid really adds to is he does kind of risk his life there towards like the end of the movie.
Yeah.
For Sydney, but
in a very dumb way, but yeah.
Yeah, that exactly. Like, even like the parts where I'm trying to give him props, it's still kind of like, he's just kind of lame.
Falls flat.
Like Dewey and Sydney are better detectives, and even Gale too. They're all better detectives and policemen and than these two fuckers combined. So I'm like,
at least his partner had like some funny, like not
He was
one-liners, but
yeah,
like he was like, listen, yeah, Roman's like bitching about it, you know, trying to be low key. He's like, oh, this is ruining my movie. It's ruining my movie. And he's like, listen, okay, we could talk about that down in the station. This is a scene where you come with us.
Yeah.
Like that part was fucking
Another
hilarious.
part that he said that was funny was when, I can't remember what name he said, but it was when Kincaid was working with Gale, and he was like, no, Gale's with me, we're working on the case together. And then the other guy's like, oh, okay, well, let me go inspect fingerprints with so and so. I think it was another like famous reporter or some shit like that. I don't know. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
but that's really all he has to offer to the movie is just being a smartass.
Sarcasm for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, a couple of things I have written here is Kincaid was so weird. The only thing cool about him to me, besides him technically risking his life to save Sydney, was his name screamed callback. I know we haven't talked a lot about Easter eggs in this review, but so far, Wes Craven has had a Freddy Nightmare on Elm Street callback Easter egg in all of the movies. In the first one, you saw Ed, the janitor, who was Wes Craven himself dressed as Freddy, which we talked about. In the second one, you saw the sweater hanging that resembled Freddy's sweater. And then in this one, the character, I don't know, well, you won't know this because we haven't gotten to those movies yet, but it's not really a spoiler, I promise. One of the characters' names is Kincaid. And it's just a very, very powerful name, very unusual name. And whenever I hear Kincaid, I always think of Nightmare on Elm Street and now Scream 3. But yeah, and they make a point to say his name a bunch. Like at one point, he says his first name because he gets on this weird, like, flirtatious kick with Sydney that I didn't care for, because I'm like, dude, you're like old enough to be her, maybe not her dad, but like her uncle or something, you know? And he was just like having this file of her on his desk from when she was like a little girl.
Yeah. And
then like he knew everything. He had all the pictures of her mother like on the scene. Like it's almost like I have it here, like they were trying to make him the suspect. Like how Cotton was super weird and cringy in the second one.
I think even Sydney started to wonder, like when she was in his office, she was like, did you like ask to be on this case? Did you request this case? Yeah. Because she's kind of wondering too. She's like, why do you like, are you so like weirdly, I don't even want to use the word passionate.
Just
you're
obsessed.
So into this me and this case. Like I get that it's interesting and it's like stuff that keeps happening and coming up. There's never like a closed case with her, but you know, it's, you know, it was kind of weird.
He had that one scene, I can't remember how it was, but he says something along the lines of like, they're talking about being on a first name basis. And she's like, I'll call you Eric or whatever the hell his name is when you catch this guy. And he goes, okay, Miss Prescott. Like, all right, I guess I'll play the game if it's the long haul of getting with you. That's how I took that.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't tell. I was a little like, I don't know, because they never really revisit that ever again. And other than like when this shit is
oh shit, she's getting passionate,
this
guys.
Shit is so weird to me. Like when he shows up in the very last scene.
Oh yeah, I got thoughts.
What the fuck was that? Why is he watching the movie with them? He's like, come on, Sydney, let's go watch the movie. It was like one of those like classic like cheesy horror movie ending things where they're like, it's a whole like little happy family and they're all like, and I gotta watch a movie together, and he's like, come on, Sydney.
It's like,
what the fuck are you doing there? Like what? I don't know many cases where, first of all, he didn't do shit. He didn't
Literally
help
nothing.
anything.
He bled everywhere. That's about it.
Yeah, he made more for the crime scene cleaners to clean up.
Yeah.
But like, and then they're all hanging out like a family at the end. I was like, what the fuck?
In Sydney's compound, no less.
Yeah, like why is she like, yeah, man, come to my house. Let's all watch a movie together. Like I could understand Gale and Dewey being there, but then just throwing him in there, that was odd.
I could imagine it was probably one of those things where they were like, all right, guys. Sydney's like, all right, guys, look, this is what went down. Motherfucker tried to kill me, and you guys, we've made it through 3 movies. Let's go kick it in my badass house with my golden retriever who's so vicious, right? Let's go over there and chill. And then Kincaid's like, yo,
can I come too?
y'all trying to watch? What y'all trying to watch? Y'all trying to watch Jeopardy? Bro, I love Jeopardy. I'm so good at it. And they're like,
everybody awkwardly looks at each other like, oh.
And Dewey's like, oh, it's silent. Let's just be like, all right, fam, fine, I guess. And Sydney's like, you know, because like he shows up, he has an arm sling, which I don't understand. I don't remember, maybe he got cut or some bullshit, but he GGs himself on the damn mantelpiece, on the couch. he got more blood on his face than fucking Jenny McCarthy's character did, and she actually got stabbed. Like maybe he got stabbed, I don't remember, but like at one point, you know, his coolest line is when he pulls out his like 40 and he's like, "Get the son of a bitch," you know, and I'm like, okay, cool. He's getting a little bit of, you know, but that's it, bro. Like that's it, and it just was super super lame for me. But other than that, it definitely was a good movie. The music, we're up to the music part. You know, it was kind of the same, you know, the same era. Basically, this time it was Creed instead of Collective Soul. There's a Creed poster at one point in her room, which I don't remember if she had that or not, but I like it because Creed's all right. You know, I listen to that music. I know they get shit on just like Nickelback, but like I like that kind of music. I think it's super super 90s and it's great. Nostalgia, duh, that's me. Yeah. But I have no problems with that. My problem with the music in this fucking movie was no Dewey theme. I'm sorry. Sue me, bro. That music is quintessential to this franchise for me, and I already covered why. I won't get back into that, but I'll repeat myself later on. But yeah. So, unless you have something to say on the music.
No, I pretty much had the same thoughts. I did miss the Dewey theme. To me, though, I honestly don't pay attention to the music that much in the movie. It's just kind of like background noise to me. So the music isn't something I'm very passionate about in the movies.
That's fair. I mean, a lot of the it's not as impactful as we talked about, I'm sure already, as Halloween. You know, it definitely has that opera or that vocals, that music that usually plays when Sydney is on screen. That's like the mixture of hopelessness and like hope. Yeah. Which is like really cool. If you guys know the name of that song, leave it in the comments. Newsflash, just comment this shit because it helps the algorithm. But anyway, the weapon doesn't really change. It's still the 120 buck knife, which I have one. Those things are dope. But yeah, it's iconic. I mean, you never mess. It's a true testament that a true classic never goes out of style. I'm not gonna tell you who says that because that's in another franchise. Okay. You know, he's like, a true classic never goes out of style. It's great. It's fantastic. I probably butchered that impression, but also let me know if you know who that is. That impression that I just said. Let me know who that is in the comments. But yeah, so moving on, the killer's appearance is a little different, but not by much. I mean, he pretty much looks like that except for all the other shit that I have hanging off of him. But his costume, it opens in the front instead of it being like a judge's robes. Yeah. We should have Ghostface as the mascot for the channel. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. But it opens up because he reveals he's wearing the bulletproof vest, and he's like, you know, get down to the surface of thing, you know. And you see that. You also see the detail that I've seen on the internet with the anticipation of the sixth movie. I'm still looking for an outfit, guys. Those of you who know, let me know where I can get the closest authentic Ghostface outfit because I need it in my cosplay collection for sure. But the gloves are connected to the robes, like they're almost like a Spider-Man leotard thing, and I thought that was really cool because seams suck, you know. Yeah. And it just added that mystique about Ghostface. Is he just a person or is he just a giant humanoid under there? Because, you know, we know he's a man or a woman or whatever, but it just adds to that. You don't have that continuity error of like seeing skin, you know. He doesn't look like it comes across as a monster, not a Halloween costume. And that detail stood out to me. But yeah, the mask, the robes, everything else pretty much stayed the same. As far as the movie being scary, that's where we're up to now. Not really. I say it has creepy parts, but that's about it. Yeah, I mean, the scariest part of the movie was the nightmare that Sydney had, honestly. Because it was like paranormal. And it gives you that like this shivery feeling. Mother wants to talk to you? Like, yeah. It's so scary. Yeah, other than that, like, I guess if you consider the suspense and then seeing any kind of gore being scary, but other than that, there was never any times where I was like, I have to hold on to you, you know? It was more of a suspenseful thing, like more of a detective movie. Which is not a bad thing at all, but it just wasn't like, I'm scared to watch this or anything like that. That's why I think the first one, just kind of like what you have, we'll get to this, guys. Those of you who are fans of Aliens, we'll get to that. Alien was horror. Aliens was more of an action thing. This one's kind of like that in the sense that it goes from the first one being a horror classic to the second to third one being slasher movies. But there's definitely nothing wrong with that. It's just not scary per se. We just got 3 more categories. We got the best thing, the worst thing, and what we rate it. So the best thing about the movie for me, being the third installment, it retained that self-awareness element that is so it's quintessential with this franchise. It's awesome. They continued, as I said, that mystery of Ghostface, especially. We had no idea till the very end, and why. Because even though we saw it was Roman, I remember Gail's character was like, Roman? It was Roman? And I'm like, that's how we felt 20 minutes ago, and he had to say why. He had to say that he was Marine's son who was left in the cold. He was like that long lost, child who saw no love, mommy issues kind of thing. And he in turn gave Billy daddy issues. And so they were like, Roman was the glue that tied Billy and Sydney together, because he was related to both of them in a weird way, like because of the mom being with all three father figures, and they made them all step siblings. Like, it was so weird, except for Billy. Billy wasn't their child, but he was a stepchild, and it was very strange. But yeah, he added that element, so I thought it was okay. It was definitely, it gave the movie a plot, but it wasn't anything crazy. I think it was probably drawn up, last minute, which I don't want to skip to the worst thing about it, but that's my, that's my take on the worst part. But other than that, I thought it was all right. The movie it didn't have this super crazy thing, except for the decoy aspect, like thinking it was Kincaid, or thinking that it could have been, at one point you said it might be Dewey, and I was like, wow, that's interesting, or something. Like, you said it was one of the big characters, and you couldn't, because we just didn't know, we had no idea. What do you think was the best thing of the movie?
Honestly, I agree for the most part. I feel like I've talked a lot about my favorite parts of the movie. Like, I think one of the best parts of the movie is, how she's really like mourning everybody that she's lost, and having those nightmares, and how all the trauma's caught up with her and stuff, because I think that's just really essential to the plot of the third movie. And I also like that Stab 3 never came out. Like, they had to stop filming it. That was part of the whole plot of the movie, was that they, somebody got killed, so they were like, let's not do this anymore. And there was a whole argument towards the beginning of the movie where they were like, come on, it doesn't have anything to do with the movie, like, why do we, and the movie stopped. So I don't know, that's really all I have to add about that, because I've pretty much been, a lot of the stuff that I like about it I've talked about.
Why don't you take us into the worst part of the movie then?
Well, I don't know, like, it's hard for me to say, because there's not really a whole lot of stuff I didn't like about this movie, other than the stuff that we've already talked about, just like Kincaid and his partner's characters, and how they didn't really have a lot to offer and stuff like that. And
so it kind of just came together, other than...
Yeah, I mean, there was like this weird, like, I don't know if it's a continuity error, maybe it was explained and I just don't remember it, but during the scene where they're in the mansion or whatever, and they him and the girl like go down to the basement and everything.
Oh, Roman,
yeah. I don't know why I do that. I like forget the most basic names. But they go down to the basement and everything, and then when Gail goes down there and opens the casket, or it was like a fake movie prop casket or whatever, and Roman is in there and they think that he's dead, and then the other girl is like in the closet.
Yeah.
And then my thing is, like, she was down there with him.
Right.
How did she not see him get into the, like, obviously he's the killer, so like how did he make her believe that? Was she like not looking, and then he, I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying when I say that? Because
I definitely know
I don't
what you're saying.
understand like how Gail comes down there, sees him in the coffin, thinks that he's dead, and then the other girl's like, is he dead? And she's like, yeah. Where was this girl when he put himself in the coffin? Because we see them down there together. I'm so confused about that.
All I can think, and this is me reaching, but all I can think of is that he was like, quick, hide. And he was supposed to be drunk. So she gets in the closet, and just for movie purposes, she couldn't hear outside the wardrobe thing. So then he was able to go in and stage that. Since he wasn't really hurting himself, maybe he just really quickly did the thing, put the knife in, and then just the rest of it was.
Yeah.
If anything, how did she not hear him? How did, her issues of not hearing him die But I didn't even think of that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's kind of a whatever.
Yeah,
But-
that's really the only things that I have to say about like anything bad about the movie, I guess.
That brings me into the worst thing, because mine was that the ending felt rushed. It definitely felt like Wes Craven maybe, or whoever was in charge, was like, all right, let's just end this thing and be done with it. There could be many reasons. Those of you who know the actual reason, I try, at least I know I try not to look up real world trivia on what happened, because I don't want that to sway my reaction to the movie or my judging of the movie. But if I'm wrong, if you guys know why it felt rushed, or if it was an opinion, let us know in the comments. But I know that I thought it was a little rushed. I thought it felt like the ending was a little sloppy. And then, of course, thinking back, it took 11 years for the fourth one to come out. Maybe there was some merit to that. But in addition to the feel of it being rushed and weird and sloppy, I thought it kind of felt a little bit like they were trying to end it open, like how they usually end slasher movies, where the killer gets killed and then all of a sudden you hear, it cuts to black, and then you see that scare at the end, and it just kind of lets you, or in Texas Chainsaw, you hear a chainsaw or something like that, and you're like, oh, he's still alive, And with this one, it wasn't. It was so fucking weird. Like, we talked about the kid, like, we're watching a movie. And she's like, oh, what movie? He's like, you just have to come and see. And I'm like,
Okay.
why are you acting so fucking weird? And then I was expecting, oh shit, is it like a surprise? Is it like, hey, your dad came over? No.
Nope.
It's her turning back, and the movie has this like really uplifting score when she gets home and she opens up her gate, doesn't put her code, opens up her door, goes to put her code, and then she's like, no, fuck it, he's dead. There's no one else that's gonna try and kill me. And then her door opens by itself. Very Freddy Krueger for me.
Yeah, that was weird to me. I was like, what?
I was like, what is happening? What's going on right now? And then she looks at the door. Patrick Dempsey has this weird ass line. Gail and Dewey fuck off into the kitchen or the living room, and he's like, well, you're just gonna have to come and see, holding his popcorn. And like, she looks back at the door and then looks at him, and then the movie ends. And I was like, that was it?
Yeah.
That sucked for me.
Yeah,
That
the
sucked
ending
so
was
hard.
really weird. I didn't really care too much for that.
And like I said, that's why it was the weakest for me, for so long.
That makes sense. I definitely agree with that.
As far as the ending goes, I think it's still the weakest. But
The ending is definitely the weakest out of the first three. So
Yeah.
I can definitely see how people would, the last thing that you saw is kind of the last thing that you remember, almost kind of sets up the rest of the movie. So I could definitely see why some people would say that the third one is the worst out of the first three.
And that brings us to rating the movie. Even though we just shat on a very, on the last part of the movie, I still rated it pretty high. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
It doesn't matter to me.
All right. I'll just take it then. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I know I gave the second one, I think, an 8.8, and the first one almost a 10. A lot of that, like I said, guys, I'm very attached to these movies and this character and these characters, as far as like Ghostface by themselves, and also the victims and stuff. I still rated it pretty high because you had that Ron, Harry, Hermione with Dewey, Gale, and Sydney. Even though Sydney was away for a long time, when they were on screen together, it all worked out. It reminds me of Harry Potter in that regard, because they are the tripod, and they each have very significant roles. One of them has more character development than the rest of them. One of them is looked at as like the leader, and then the other one is the glue, and they're kind of interchangeable at times. Sydney's not necessarily Harry, but for the most part, she is. And that's very easy for me to relate because I'm a big Harry Potter fan. So I gave it really high. I wrote here, there's nothing amazing like the original that like stood away from the others. It was mainly nostalgia. The sequel was mainly nostalgia for me. And then the third one is just an ending to a trilogy. So by today's standards, I think it's still a pretty good movie. The effects were really well done, with the exception of some of the cheesy choices with kills and stuff. The movie was still all right. I think it was higher than a 7, which is usually my like 75% is a 7.
Yeah.
So I think it was a little higher than that, but not by much. Maybe I should have given it a 7.5, but I'm going to stick with the 8 out of 10. Especially when the movie came out, I was really excited because the second one didn't end as like a promise of a sequel or a trilogy in this case. And then the third one came out. All the actors were the same. I'm a big like proprietor or whatever of that. If the actors stay the same, you got my loyalty because the loyalty's in the product.
Yeah, I cannot stand when movies have the same character but a different actor.
Now, if someone dies, there's nothing you can do about that.
Well,
Nowadays,
yeah.
we're doing CG as best we can, but back in the day, they would just straight up just be like, oh, so-and-so.
They should find a way to write them off, I
Yeah.
think, for sure.
It's definitely doable. I mean, Hollywood has gotten pretty lazy, in my opinion, because with all the freaking remakes, but that's for another video or another episode. But yeah, so what about you? What do you give this movie?
So the last one, I gave it a solid 8. This one, for some reason, I don't want to give it, like, even though I did like it more, a little bit more than the second one, it was just that, just a little bit more than the second one. So I want to say, like, it sounds weird, but like an 8.3.
Okay.
Kind of like that's where I feel comfortable rating it at, I think.
All right. And you said no particular reason, just based off of the others and how this stacks up.
Yeah, like I think it's basically comparing it to the first two, because to me it doesn't make sense to rate this as like a standalone on its own movie because it's tied in so much with the first and second one. So I definitely think that based off of the first ones and how much I like the first two, that's where I would put that one at.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, right on. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you. Really appreciate it. Let us know what you think. Was this movie dog shit? Is this your favorite in the Scream franchise? Let us know in the comments below. We are excited. I know I am. I need to get to the 6th one because I haven't seen it yet, because I want to watch it with her for the first time. And we might do that review as a live because I haven't seen it yet. We're still thinking about that, but thinking about that. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. We have a bunch of important links in the comments. We have important links down below in the description of this video. We have a Patreon set up. We have a Teespring page set up where we're putting on merch as the ideas come. If you have ideas for merch, let us know in the comments. Pretty much like I said earlier, overload the damn comments, get the traffic, grow the channel. Those of you who are subscribed to my other channel, Snapkeep Videos, if you'd like this kind of content, consider subscribing because we're going to be uploading a lot more stuff on the We Judge Everything channel, including Scream 4, 5, and 6. All the other slasher movies that we plan on watching, and then other genres like action movies. We're going to do the Fast and Furious movies. We're going to do a bunch of cult classic movies, TV shows, stuff like that. And we're going to be trying a lot of exotic foods and exotic things that like I've never done before and you've never done before. So if that's the kind of stuff you guys are interested in watching, let us know. Show us love in the comments. If it's not within your means to be a patron or anything that's monetarily taxing, then just hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it, or a thumbs down if you didn't. It helps us out a lot. And
you know you liked it though.
and subscribing doesn't cost anything. So just letting you know that'll help just as much as Patreon, just to grow the channel and the community. And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when videos like this upload. I'm still trying to get these to get kicked on to Spotify. So those of you who don't have the time to watch the videos, but you want to listen to our thoughts, because this is an hour. We're going at like an hour and 12 minutes. So that's a very long episode to watch on YouTube, especially when your phone fucking times out whenever, if you don't have premium or whatever. Get YouTube premium, I guess. But we're going to kick them out on podcasts because we like this podcast style, and we are breaking these movies down that are an average of an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's kind of hard to condense it without a speed run to 30-minute video. So those of you who enjoyed this, again, let us know. I'm going to stop talking unless you have something to say. We're out of this bitch.
We out.
All right. Y'all have a good one. We love you. See you next time.